welcome to DevReady podcast, where we're helping non-techs build great tech. Joined by Serena Lamb today. We've been on a couple of conversations, been introduced to her product at Fuzzy Sequence, and learned a little bit about what she's trying to achieve. Now, it's all about embedding AI into your sales process and working with LinkedIn email campaigns, etc. I'll let Serena share the story and background, but it's quite an interesting background as to how she got to Fuzzy Sequence, and it's all about pivoting. I want to just highlight that a little bit today because it was a good background as to maybe some more deep tech technology she was working on and then moved into something a bit more sales oriented. Serena, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It's
Good to
always
finally be
fun.
on the podcast after chatting to you
Yes.
for quite a while.
A couple of reschedules along the way and different conversations, but it's been good. And you were in the US the week before last. How was that experience?
Yeah, incredible. It's what everyone says it is. You get to meet the most fantastic engineers, the most fantastic brains. And everyone's 1 degree of separation or 2 degrees, and you can literally like in that month I met people that I've always heard about or people from companies that I've heard about. And I actually met the actual engineers or the people who are working on the product, which is really incredible because you could pick their brains and see the processes that they did, the tech they used, and it is truly the highest density of tech people, which is pretty cool. And the weather is like incredible as well, so it makes it a lot
Okay.
easier to
Tick,
move
tick,
around.
tick across all boards.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
it's really fun. Yeah.
Now, for everyone out there, tell us a little bit about Serena. Who are you? Where'd you come from? And how did you end up in startup? It's always a fun story.
Ooh, okay. So where am I? Where am I from? So from Melbourne. Studied IT and finance in uni, pretty standard degree. Didn't really want to do IT actually to begin with. It was something my mum forced me to do. It'd be funny if she listened to this podcast actually.
Forced
Um,
you to do, I like that.
well, at the time, all the cool kids did com law. I think that was the standard career path for every studious kid. And so mum had this insight to, she said, IT is the future. If you don't do IT, you'll be behind. And so made me, I wanted to go to Melbourne Uni and do the single commerce law whatever degree. And she's like, nope, you have to do IT. And Monash offered it. And yeah, went to Monash, did that. And I think, yeah, grateful for her insight. And she made me and my siblings all do IT. It's opened so many doors. And absolutely like, yeah, it's helped me so much in my career. So good insights on her. So she's a good foreseer, I guess. But did that, started my career off at IBM, and because of the IT degree that I could do an IBM internship when I was, I think, 19 years old. So I was very lucky. Started
That's
IBM
nice and
pretty
early,
early.
isn't it? Yeah, very early.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think if I wasn't at Monash, I wouldn't have had that opportunity. So very lucky to have had that. And when I did the internship, they kept me on part time, so I was able to continue working at IBM, get a salary, and also work a full time job, study full time at
Study
Monash.
full time, work,
Yeah,
tick,
yeah,
tick, tick, winning.
yeah. So that was pretty fun.
Awesome.
Was at IBM for about 7 years. Always knew that I wanted to do startups, so I dabbled in and out of startups. Always sit on the side of my desk. Lesson learned is for me, I have to go 100% in. Like I think side of the desk for me specifically, like just doesn't work. You almost need to spend like every waking minute thinking about the customer problem for it to be able to succeed. And so at IBM, always did it on the side, but I was very conscious of what skills I needed to learn to be able to get to the next level. And so at IBM, was very lucky, was able to work in about 7 or 8 different roles. The beauty of a big company is you're able to try a lot of
Yeah,
different
always
things.
learn new things and jump
Yeah,
from place to place. What were
exactly.
some of the roles and what did you enjoy the most at IBM?
Ooh, good question. I think the strategy roles and the IX roles were the most fun, purely because I think I don't know if you remember design thinking used to be all the rage. Not anymore, but 10 years ago. Working on those projects meant that you have a lot of new ideas, and it kind of introduced me to the whole concept of how do you think of things very differently. And one of the exercises that we had was think of something that you could do just by waving a magical wand. And a lot of the times when you could wave that magical wand, you could actually break down to create real startups and real ideas. But a lot of the times we think of like what the 1x or the 2x is, but actually when you wave the magical wand, it is the 10x. And it's actually very tangible to do if you work backwards on what the steps are to get there. So I think, yeah, I think that was definitely my favorite role. And I also got to meet incredible clients, incredible team members as well. And yeah, it was very, love that experience.
So there's a lot of background experience in corporate, but then strategy is always a fun place to park yourself because that's where ideas come to fruition and how do you really execute.
Yeah.
A lot of people talk about product, and I say this from a product perspective, it's not a strategy. So don't think as your
Yeah.
product as your strategy. It can't be. There's a lot more around it that delivers it, that executes, helps you
Mhm.
run business model, etc., path to markets. So your product's definitely not your strategy. The
Yeah.
strategy is really another creative outlet because it is creative and you need to learn, flex, and evolve and test around the product, and the product will
Mm.
change because of the strategy, and the
Mm.
strategy might change the product. So it's
Mhm.
quite an interesting dynamic that happens within that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. And it almost like, I think you almost need to test the feedback first before you can form a strategy. It's always like, I think people think of strategy first, but I think strategy works best first when you have a predefined market. But for startups, it's completely the opposite, where you almost are creating a new category. So there's no playbook in place where you can be like, this is what works. And you need to be really on the ball with one, what customers are saying, and then two, what the vision is so that you can create that overall strategy. Which I think in startups sometimes the reverse is done, but there's no point doing a strategy when you're not even listening to the customers.
Oh, if you don't have customers and people buying, you don't really know what's going to fly either, like you said. So
Exactly.
the product and the strategy goes hand in hand, and you're evolving
Yes,
both. And they're both pretty agile in the same frame because they're always moving
exactly.
and changing, evolving. You might change your customer completely, which you did. We'll talk to that a little bit. So,
Yeah.
so when you stepped out into the startup space, what
Yeah.
did that look like? What was the first entry into it? What was the first concept and idea that you thought, oh, this will really fly in the space?
Oh, so my very first idea was actually 10 years ago. We were very lucky. We got into a university program. It's called Incubate. I think they've changed the name now. It was my first $20,000 check.
That
And
would have felt like a big check at the time.
oh
Yeah,
yeah, as a
huge.
21-year-old, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
it's a
So
lot of
wow.
money. It was incredible. And at the time, there was only, it's so funny because now I've met the founder. It was Match.com, and then there was Tinder. There were two extremes. And it's funny because the founder of Match.com actually lives in Singapore as well now, and
Oh,
I've
there
met
you
him
go.
a few times. So
Yeah.
the first startup, we saw that with Match.com, it was a long process of being able to figure out fill out a long application form. How do you figure out who the right person is? And that was very tedious. And then you had the other side, which was Tinder, where you're swiping left and right. And there was nothing in the middle where you could actually build a meaningful relationship based on wit and experience. So the first startup that I did was something called The Perfect Date. And what we
Okay.
wanted to do was build a better dating experience for people. And so did that. The tricky thing about dating is LTV is low. The reason for that is if you're successful, the customer actually theoretically churns. So you don't have frequency. So from a startup point of view, it actually
So
isn't a
you're
very good
winning if they leave. That's not a
exactly.
bad outcome though.
Not for a business point of
Yeah.
view. For
Yeah.
a customer point of view, it's amazing.
It's maybe what can you sell them after they leave? It's probably the question. How do you follow through on something else?
That's interesting, actually. I think that would be really cool. I think if startups were to, like, if the larger dating startups were to think about that, that'd be a pretty interesting exercise. Like, how do you make the relationships more meaningful? And it's interesting they haven't actually moved into that, but I think Andrew, I think you've got a
There you
good
go. Idea.
there we go down the
Someone
path.
else can go start that one. We've got plenty going on at the
Yeah,
moment.
it's like literally top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel.
Yep. I got to think
um,
about all of those bits because, yeah, I agree. That would be at a point they're going to leave, which is a win for the app or
yeah, for
the
the user, exactly,
technology or for the
exactly,
user. So
exactly.
they probably feel like they owe you something in inverted commas
Yeah.
because yes, I found my perfect partner on this platform. Now I probably have got massive trust. So what else might I be able to convert and
Mm,
sell them to? So something
mm,
for people to think about in that space for sure.
mm. But yeah, no, definitely. I think I actually went through a series of. They always say you have 10 fails before you have one win. So I went through a series of a lot of B2C
Yeah.
businesses. I realized with the B2C space, it was sexy, but it wasn't something that I loved and enjoyed. And I went
Okay.
through a series of that. And even like, last year when I decided to go fully into startup, I was building an edge AI deployment platform. Sexy
This one
product.
fascinates me. Like, tell me about this. Yeah.
Yeah. So at the time, we saw a huge. we saw this huge opportunity where a lot of AI deployment practices mirrored cloud deployment practices. And so we we're thinking if we were to build a platform where it could build, quantize the model, refine the model, and then put it on a device, it would be a huge market opportunity there. The tricky thing is, what I realized, people actually weren't ready to buy that last year, and it's something that couldn't
Very
get a lot of.
early, yeah. Before
Sorry,
its time.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was like April last year, and one of the other things over time, like I realized the other thing that I was really good at was getting meetings with people. And it's like, this is interesting. And for me to get meetings with people and be able to do sales, I had to use about 7 or 8 different tools to be able to personalize, be able to do research, be able to write sequences messages. And there was no one platform that did it. And I waited for a few months because I thought, surely like someone's going to build this, and no one actually built it. So in January, I decided, let me do some research in this area and see what people are actually thinking of tools. And I've realized that a lot of people actually hate the tools that are out there because it's very cumbersome. You have to import and export, you have to pull information from all over the place, and it's not a streamlined process. And so I thought, what if I were to build something? And so built a really quick and easy prototype, showed a few people, and they're like, oh, how much is it? And it was the first time ever that I actually had someone actually reverse
Ask
ask
you
me.
how much it was. That's a good
It was such
sign you're doing something right.
it
Yes,
sounds
it's a good
so
buying
small.
question.
I know
Yeah.
it sounds so small, but before that, the number one thing I always had was I had to ask, oh, would you buy the product? And the moment someone asks you how much it is, you know that you're building the right thing. And it was such a
Yeah,
like
you're
a
on the right path at least to there's an interest,
exactly.
you're solving a problem that really exists because if they're asking a buying question, because that's what it is, effectively, yes, you're on a move. Then you can put an offer out there and see what flies.
Exactly, exactly. And like I think a lot of me like avoided to work in the sales space because it seems saturated, but I realized over time the product that I'm building is so different to what's available on the market, and it just changed like my approach on okay, what can I do that is generationally different and different to what's available out there. And so yeah, in February this year, diverted all my resources, decided to go heads down, build the product properly, and then here we are, and we're like in November now, which is pretty quick.
It goes quick, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
So, fuzzy sequence. So, you started with an early stage product. How did you spin up a product? Because some people get a little bit stuck in product and may spend 12, 24 months building something. What was the strategy behind getting something in the hands of people that they could really test and give you that
Yeah.
feedback on?
Yeah, I think this was actually like testament to like my early days at IBM. A lot they say that build high fidelity prototypes and see how people use it, and if they respond well, then build it. I'm a big believer in seeing if people will buy it, seeing people pay for it, and then actually launching it. I think most companies actually build it, realize no one wants to pay for it, and then deploy it. And I think that's actually the wrong way to go about it. I'm a big believer in showing the product and seeing if you can actually build the process for the customer in the back end before you launch the actual thing.
Yeah. So, maybe manually doing some things in the back end. Is that what you mean by that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There's a thing called the Wizard of Oz approach, where you're kind of doing it in the like, the customer's like puts in an inquiry, and then you in the background you just do it manually, and the customer doesn't really know, and then you present it, and it's like Wizard of Oz, it's done,
It's all done.
all done.
All
Exactly.
automated for you. Whoever it is, they're getting the result. So that's a win, and that becomes more automating your platform to take away the work that you're doing, so you can
Yeah,
officially scale this thing. Because you might be able to serve 100 people in that instance, or 50 people, or 20, depending on the amount of work you need to do, and then
yeah.
what pieces are the most complex for you to enable you to deliver more. So fascinating strategy. In terms of building tech, tell me a bit about how you approached it. Was it low code, no code? Was it building a Figma wireframe for a showcasing? What were the steps? Because people get stuck in this and they look for perfection in technology, and the first thing that a lot of people come to me from is I want a quote to build something. Wrong question in my mind. It's all about what's a bit of a strategy plan. What are we trying to test with? How do we validate? What were the
Yeah.
first things to get to validation in a product in people's hands?
Um, I think so. I actually think if someone will pay for it is the number one testament. If
Yep.
no one will pay for it, you're not really building a business. It could be a Figma prototype. Actually, like, have recommended a lot of my friends like just do a Figma, see if someone would buy it, and if they would buy it, then you're building the right thing. If you don't have that, then like what you would do with that Figma as well is like put real data in, show what it would be like and show the outcome of it. And then if someone wants to pay for it, then you're building the right thing. If by the end of the conversation, if no one asks you the price or anything, then you're probably building the wrong thing. If you want to build like a true business. I can't speak for B2C because I know there's a lot of like free tiers and what that looks like, but definitely for the B2B is if a customer's paying for it, then you actually are providing some level of value.
Yeah, if we're paying,
And
they've
it can even be
committed, they're
$5. Like it
into.
doesn't have to be a lot.
Yeah, just
It
some
can be
proof
$5.
of
Just some
payment.
proof of like that. Yeah, exactly. It doesn't have to
Yeah.
be a lot. Some I think startups have said, oh, we need to get them to pay $1,000, $2,000. But actually, there's two things. Like if they're paying like $5, it means that they're putting, that they're interested in what you have. And the second thing is if they're giving you their time, that's the second form of payment. And I don't think people realize like time is such an important asset too. And if they're giving you those two things, that's like the most expensive things that any person has. And so that's like
Your
a true
time's generally more expensive than what they're going to be paying for your product, likely
exactly,
if it's a
exactly,
SaaS model.
exactly,
I
exactly.
find it fascinating on pricing models, and quite interesting what you just said is sometimes it's just about getting people to pay something. You
Yeah,
can always change your pricing. I think people get a bit stuck in what do I charge for this thing.
yeah,
If I charge too not enough, then maybe I'm
yeah,
undervaluing it. If I charge too much, maybe I'll have no people buying. What's the perfect sweet spot? I think at the beginning in the world of startup, the perfect sweet spot might just be people willing to pay something because
yeah,
you're really trying to
exactly,
validate. You're not trying to really drive massive revenue at the beginning. It's just
exactly.
validation. It's getting
Yeah,
people to buy
yeah,
in and people you can
yeah,
talk to and
yeah,
get feedback from and
yeah,
get iterative improvement in your products. So agree. You don't necessarily have to charge what you think the product should be worth.
yeah,
This maybe it's more around just getting more people on the platform to really help you validate and iterate and pivot and
yeah,
work towards what the product should be rather than what you think it should be.
yeah.
So important point there. Okay. In terms of something I found, so I'm piloting fuzzy sequence. Happy to say that.
Yes,
One thing
thank
I
you.
found that
Oh, I appreciate.
yeah, no, welcome. It's when I heard about what you're doing. I think we'll talk about jump on a podcast. So I'll give that a go because we're always looking at how we might improve our automation and things that we're doing within our business. One of the things that sort of then shone out to me was, all right, you book in a catch up once a week with me. Sometimes I don't have time, I'll cancel it, schedule it. But I think it's good just to enable your early stage customers just to share and even vent if something's not working because
Yeah,
likelihood early stage product's not going to be working. So I think
yeah.
that's a really good strategy there. How has that been perceived within the community of your early stage, I'd say adopters really?
Yeah, I think people who have paid or who have given you the time generally understand that you're a startup. And so as long as you're taking feedback and changing the product as you go, customers are very receptive. Even the times where, and I think this might be the corporate side of me, is when things feel like they're going wrong. A lot of the times I've realized my customers are very supportive because they know that we're a startup. They know that, actually know this, we need to change these things around. And so as long as you're willing to put in the extra effort, taking the feedback and showing that you're progressing over time, I think that makes a huge difference. And one of the other things that I learned was if you're willing to go above and beyond, like from a customer point of view. So for example, if something doesn't work, can you do it manually in the background for a customer as well? I feel like that helps a lot too.
It does. I've been a part of that process with you. It does. It's like, oh, cool. At least it's working, all right? So you get to an outcome. But the goal is you just want to help people get to an outcome. I
Yeah,
don't care how it gets done, and most people don't really. It's
yeah,
just if there's a roadblock or something's in the way, it's if
yeah,
you're willing to help in the background and do something manually. It's a big tick from a customer's perspective. It's like, okay, they got your back. They're trying to evolve and they're trying to improve the product and taking on feedback. So I found that quite good as to anyone that's in the world of startup. Some people just talk about, I want to build a SaaS product, get 100,000 subscribers and live on a beach.
doesn't
The
happen.
reality is technology is a commodity now. We're in a world where it's all commoditized and it's really our spin on what we can do differently and maybe it's a process driven thing. But if I had to pick between two products that are identical, one's going to give me zero service and one's going to give me that nice warm, fuzzy feeling. I'm a customer, I'm not a number. I'm going to pick that one. And I think we just got to realize that people matter. We're still people, we're
Yeah,
selling to people.
yeah,
It's not just a technology product. And if you can just add a little bit more flavor to your support and customer engagement, goes a long way to keeping people sticky on the platform and
Mm,
also getting them more engaged in what you're doing as a business. So
mm.
hats off to you. Good tick in terms of what you're doing in that space. Because I feel like most people in startup just feel like let's get a customer and let's hope they don't stop subscribing. Maybe let's not talk to them. I've heard that before too, so it's a fascinating one.
Okay. I feel like if you don't go to the customer, you don't know what the product's doing, because you could
Yeah.
accidentally build something that could be completely off the mark as well, and you wouldn't know if you don't talk to your customers too.
Yeah, and invest all that money, time, and effort, and it's like,
Exactly.
no one's using this feature. What have I done?
Yeah.
It's easier to build features in products. You've always got new ideas.
Yeah.
It's not complicated to come up with a new concept and go and add a new feature to it, but to
Mm.
test and validate if someone needs it, I think there's more work in that than it is building it sometimes, and
Yeah.
especially if you're a bit more technical and a
Yeah.
technical founder, that's the comfort zone. Let's just go build something. It might
Yeah.
take a week or two. I've built something great and no one's interested, but the reality is, if you spent two weeks to your customers, your product roadmap will be maybe in a different
Yeah.
position and
Yeah.
have more buy-in. So, in terms of fuzzy sequence, what's the goal? What are you trying to do from a business perspective? What's that big vision that you're striving for within the business?
Yeah. Well, it's pretty cheesy, but I think every founder gets into it to become a unicorn. A startup founder. I do want to become the unicorn and build something that actually changes people's lives. I think from a sales perspective, like we're building a sales, but a product that allows people, like as AI evolves, I think AI will help people do things that are pretty boring. And so what we want to do is we're building a product that actually allows people to be creative again, build relationships and actually focus on what matters, which is the actual catch ups and actually building a relationship. And so the vision of Fuzzy is how do we help the user actually do what they're good at, which is building the relationship, being creative, and take out all the admin and all the boring stuff away and make it so much more easier for the user actually to build a relationship as opposed to all the boring stuff. And so we're kind of like thinking of it as like a best friend that takes care of all the boring stuff and you can focus on what you need to do. And we see the sales role evolve like that too. And yeah, the goal is we'll become a unicorn and be able to do that. And that's all we focus on, and building a better sales experience as opposed to a boring admin one. Fun fact, salespeople spend 72% of time in admin, which is crazy. I want to take that all away so that salespeople can spend time on meeting people, which is why people get into sales anyway.
70% on admin. Yeah, I feel that.
Right?
Yeah, I feel
Crazy.
that. There's the whole prospecting side. There's contracts. There's negotiation. There's a lot of that in admin that can get churned up in time. You want to spend more time in the space of just connecting.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
goal of
Yeah.
being in sales.
Yeah.
You're attracting leads, potential customers, what for one purpose to connect and convert, add value to them and their business, their
Yeah.
lives, whatever it might be. So it's a whole
Definitely.
value chain that you're trying to strive for. If you didn't have to do the admin work, that'd be great. Zero admin work, I'd love that. So yeah, good vision. I like where you're going. You mentioned at the top when you said I didn't want to go into sales because it was
Yeah.
quite a the words you use I can't recall, but you said quite a busy area. There's a lot of competition potentially in the space. But the reality is everyone's selling something, yeah? So there's so many customers. It's probably not difficult to go to any customer and they've got a sales problem or a marketing problem. Yeah, I put them in two little buckets. They quite go hand in hand. So there's one
Mm,
advantage to that. But that's
mm,
why it's probably a noisy space too, because there's clearly a lot of people have the problem of how do we
mm,
convert, how do you attract more customers, and how do we actually make more sales? So,
mm.
how does Fuzzy Sequence look to help that? You mentioned let's get the admin work out of the way, but what do you do differently to really attract and continue the conversation when you've got AI behind this?
Yeah. A lot of the solutions are focused on being point solutions. So it does one thing. And how we've thought about it is instead of just doing all these, like going from tool to tool to do all these little one things, we've taken it a step up to do the holistic stack. And we've got a lot of thinking behind how do you build a good sales strategy? How do you build a good sales copy? How do you take out all the hard work so that you're focusing purely on getting the meeting in the most creative way that you think is best. And so how we're different is we really focus on the user experience. So instead of us going to 7 different tools to be able to prospect, find the leads, being able to write the right message, checking your grammar, etc., we do all that for you, and we automate it, and we personalize messages at scale. So the message I write to you versus writing the message to someone else will be completely different, and it's unique to not just you as a user, but also from my business as well. So the example I like to use is, imagine you're selling an ERP business. You could be targeting a finance person, and you can also be targeting a tech manager. The way that you personalize messages based on the pain points will be completely different as well. So you want to have, and like, that's why I hate spam, because it's not targeted to the user. You're not actually sending something that's unique to them. I'm building a platform that actually has unique messages and unique ways of building a relationship with you and also the user and the person that you're reaching out to, so that it's not one of those, a number, so to speak, but it's actually a person that you're reaching out to.
And it's the warm up. I see it as a warm up to the conversation, right? So you are trying to. The reality is that sales is a numbers game, and if you're in sales, you know that. That's the reality. It's the more conversations you have, the more you're going to learn about how you communicate your product and pitch your product. You're going to more you're going to learn about your end customers, what they, what's important to them, how do you communicate to them. And you mentioned it. I might talk to a technical guy versus the CFO. Very different value propositions. They care about very different things. So being able to warm up the conversation so you can come into something that's not just we do X, Y, Z. And it's not about you. And I think that's the problem in a lot of sales messaging. Everyone gets the 1,000 messages on LinkedIn. And it's just, hi, Andrew, great to connect. We do this. That's great, but what do I care? That's the hard part of sales. It's building a connection, because the connection then stems to trust. And that's what you want to get to. So you can help people build trust, and you're onto something that's quite substantial in the space, because it's not easy to build trust in the space of sales, because people see you as someone that's just trying to sell something, and you get a lot of it thrown at you.
It's true. I've also changed my, I tell my team, don't sell at all. Focus on what their problem is and try to understand their problem. And also, if you don't think it's the right fit, don't offer the product, because you want to make sure you're caring about that person and actually taking to their consideration. So in all the way that we write, we actually don't talk about fuzzy. We talk about more about their problem, what they're experiencing, and if we can actually help them.
Everyone's in solution selling, and I think people get a bit lost when they go to products. One advantage and probably disadvantage I've had is I've always been in software solutions, which means that when you get a product selling, you can transition a lot of that, but you get stuck in solutions, so sometimes you get a little bit far. So it's one thing I've noticed, that when you're solution selling, we can build anything, but it's not the goal when you get into product, right? It's more, how do we flavor out something that's really going to stick at scale. So it's marrying those two up. If you can get it right, I think is a really good outcome. So like you said, what's the problem? Because it's solution selling, it's not product selling. It's not putting a product in their face. So how do you marry up product and solution selling? If you can do that well, you're onto something, because they're going to feel a part of, or you're caring. It's more care and trust that you build. Again, you get back to that. So good advice for the team, because I feel like if you just push a product, no one really cares. They want to know why. Why should I buy this thing?
Exactly.
So in terms of startup, you mentioned a little bit before you want to build a unicorn. I love that, considering the amount of unicorns that are really out there in the space. But in terms of why do you get up in the morning? So from the customer's perspective, what lights you up? Because I feel like there's always something in a founder that lights you up when you have a conversation with someone around product, problem. What's that one thing that lights you up and keeps you moving? Because in startup it can be smack you in the face a little bit, hit a brick wall. What's that thing that lights you up?
I think it's when a customer tells me I'm helping them. It's literally that keeps me up. I say all this unicorn stuff, but actually I think what brings me joy every day is I set my mornings with customer calls, and when I can see that it's helpful for the customer, it actually really lights up my day, as cheesy as it sounds. And I realize that's why for me as a person, I don't do as well in B2C because you can't really have that relationship with a customer. Whereas B2B, you have that relationship. You can talk to them, you can see what actually, how you can help and actually how you can be helpful. So, yeah, because I remember talking to a friend about this and they're like, oh, you should do B2C, it's scalable, yada, yada. But I'm like, I realized for me, I get a lot of fulfillment building a relationship with someone and actually helping them. And that brings me a lot of joy. So definitely for me, B2B is more helpful, like something that brings me a lot more joy than the B2C mass mini approach.
Yeah, so you can help someone right at the
Yeah,
end of the conversation. You're adding
exactly.
value to some
Hmm.
capacity. They're giving that positive feedback,
Yep.
and that's like a perpetual cycle. You get a bit of positive feedback. Yes, we're helping, and then that just
Yep.
keeps you motivated to keep
Yep.
evolving product,
Yep.
helping more. So when you're on that sort of train, it's a good place to be. And if you can sustain it from a runway investment perspective, that's when you can build a really good business because
Yep.
yeah, you're not just backed up by dollars and cents. It's how do we
Mm,
help and deliver value? Because the
yeah.
reality is, it's not going to be an easy journey, as you know, and you're going to have challenges along the way. But I like what you just said, setting up my morning calls with customers because I can learn from them and see how we're helping or
Yeah.
see how we might be able to help in a different way. Starting a day off that way. That's why
Yeah.
I like to do podcasts in the morning too. It's my
Yeah.
networking thing, and I
Yeah.
agree. It's just getting conversation
Stay up
going, building
right.
relationships. Yeah, it's a good place to
Yeah.
start from, connecting with people. It's a
Yeah.
really good one. In terms of what's next for you, how have you gone about building this? Have you bootstrapped it? Have you had any seed investment? What's next for Fuzzy and or Fuzzy
Yeah.
Sequence and how you drive this forward?
Yeah, so we've had a little bit of angel funding, had some really great supporters along the way and really great mentors. Probably, yeah, in the next 6 months, probably will fundraise for the next round. But yeah, at the moment, has had a little bit of funding, probably go the proper seed round, pre-seed or seed, whatever it's called. For
Yeah.
me, it doesn't really matter what the terminology is, as long as we like get some funding. And the goal for us is to build really good product, and so having really great engineers on board.
I need good people to build good product. I
Good
agree.
people. Yeah, and just like
Product
having fun
strategy.
with everyone that you have work with as well.
Brilliant, Serena. Thanks for coming on and
Thanks
talking
for
about
having me.
Fuzzy Sequence, the journey to date. Let's catch up in 6, 12 months. I'd love to continue the conversation, see how the product's going and evolving, because
Thank
I
you.
know it will. It will probably change direction 3 times. And who
Yeah.
knows what you'll find along the way. A few
Yeah.
nuggets of gold with customers, which is where it's all generally found. So thanks for coming on DevReady podcast. We'll share this out and also share some links to Fuzzy Sequence. If someone wants to be a part of it, because I know you're in sort of beta, sort of early mode.
Mm.
Someone wants to learn more or try out what you're doing, how might they do that?
Yeah, we do have a waiting list. There's a waiting list, or otherwise, just reach out to me on LinkedIn. Always
Perfect.
open to have conversations. Serena Lamb, you'll be able to find me. Yeah.
Beautiful, Serena. Well, thanks for joining us.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for having me, Andrew.